Hello everyone! Today we are going to use a soldering aid tool called Helping Hands. This small tool has a weighted base and two adjustable arms with alligator clips at the end that can hold small items in place as you solder. To use it, you will simply unfold the arms and tighten them into position using the wing nuts. Once you have the tool set up, you can prep the items you will be soldering. In this case, we will be soldering two wires together. Since these wires will have a section of exposed copper, we'll be using heat shrink to allow us to cover that spot and prevent any accidental contact that could cause damage or short out the connection later on. Now that we have both sides of the wires stripped, we're going to go ahead and insert them into the Helping Hands tool. Now before we start soldering, we still have to put the piece of heat shrink on here. So we're going to go ahead and use regular 2:1 thin wall heat shrink, as seen here, and take a small piece and insert it onto one side of the wire. Once you have slid a piece of heat shrink onto the wire, then we are ready to begin soldering. I will be using an electronics grade solder commonly called 6040 because of the tin and lead contents. This type of solder also has a flux core, meaning you do not need additional flux to use it. Flux is a chemical that allows the solder to stick to the metal surfaces you are trying to bond together. When soldering, the idea is to get the metal surface hot enough so the solder will start to stick to it on its own. Once the solder flows into the copper and you can see that it has penetrated into the strands, you can go ahead and remove your soldering iron. It only takes a few seconds before the solder connection has cooled down enough to be able to be touched. Once that happens, you can go ahead and slide the heat shrink back over the top of the connection. Now that the heat shrink is in place, we need to use something like a heat gun or a torch to shrink it down. In this case, we'll be using a butane-powered torch. Now, if you're going to be using a torch, it's important that you do not leave the heat in one place for too long, or you risk scorching the heat shrink. Once the heat shrink has been reduced to the desired size, you are done. And now you have a very sturdy connection that is barely larger than the original wire itself. Thank you for watching. This is Austin from We Supply.